Hi everyone, and welcome back to the ALMA certification training. In today's session, we'll discuss a number of smaller configurations relating to resource management in ALMA. This session is intended for staff users with the General System Administrator role, the Catalog Administrator role, or the Repository Administrator role. If you have not yet listened to the certification training introductory session, please do so before continuing, as it contains some useful information about the certification training in general. I'm presenting the session today from a live sandbox environment, configured almost identically to your own sandbox. I do encourage you to follow along in your sandbox environment. Feel free to pause the recording at any time in order to try out some of the things I'm demonstrating. We are planning a live question and answer call following the training. Please make note of any questions you may have in preparation for that call and submit them to your project team in advance so we can come to that meeting prepared to respond. You may also want to search the ALMA online help for answers to your questions. The first thing we're going to discuss today is provenance codes. Provenance is a field in the item record, which can be used, for example, to record the current or previous ownership of the item, the collection to which the item currently or formerly belonged, or information concerning the donor of the item. Let's navigate now to a item and open an item record. And we'll see what a provenance is. Here we see the provenance field. The provenance dropdown is populated with values from the provenance code table that we're going to see right now. We can populate the provenance code table from the Resource Configuration Management menu. In the General submenu, the provenance code link is here. Clicking on the link, we see a screen that's very familiar to us. It's a standard, typical code table screen. We enter a code here. And a description for the code next to it. Click on Add Row. We can continue doing so for as many provenance codes as we'd like. When we're done, we click on Save to save the table. And if we navigate back to our item record, we should be able to see the values that we've just configured available in the provenance dropdown. And indeed, here they are. We simply select one of the provenance codes we've configured and click Save on the record in order to save the provenance code as part of the item record. Navigating back to our provenance code table, you may have noticed that it's possible to select one of the provenance codes as a default value. Selecting a provenance code as the default will add the description of that provenance code to all item records which are currently or in the system which have an empty provenance field. Every item record which has an empty provenance field will receive the provenance code description that we entered here if in fact we designate that provenance code as being the default value. That may not be our intention, and so we advise caution in selecting a default value from the provenance code table. The next session I'd like to discuss is accession number. Accession number parameter allows you to configure ALMA to generate a unique accession number for holdings records in a specified location. You can configure a distinct accession number sequence for each relevant location. The accession number will be placed in the mark field and subfield designated by the accession placement parameter for that location. Let's take a look at a location in ALMA and see what I'm talking about. If you navigate to the Fulfillment Configuration menu and open the physical locations of a particular library, let's take a location that's already configured with an accession placement, we'll see that in every location configuration screen down at the bottom there is an accession placement field. This drop-down is not customizable. However, you can select one of the values here, and that will be the field and subfield in the holdings record, which will contain the accession number. And the configuration that we're discussing now is not this configuration. This is a prerequisite for the discussion that we're having now. The configuration that we're discussing now is the automatic generation of an accession number, which will be placed in this field in the holdings record for that location. Accession numbers can be configured, or automatic generation of accession numbers can be figured from the Resource Management Configuration menu. Again, under the General submenu, the accession number link that we have here. Clicking on that link opens the table for accession numbers. We can see the accession numbers that currently exist in the system. We can create additional accession numbers, not accession numbers, but routines for generating accession numbers automatically. Notice that the routines for such generation are specific to a library and location. We can select any of the libraries in the institution that may be using accession numbers in their one or more of their locations. Selecting the library, then selecting the location. We then select a name, a particular name, a unique name for this particular automatic generation sequence that's going to be the result of this configuration. We can select the method we want ALMA to use for generating that number, either a sequential number that will be generated automatically by ALMA, preceded by a prefix, which we can configure here. Alternatively, we can select a sequence followed by a timestamp, both of which will be generated automatically by ALMA, the sequence and the timestamp. Timestamp, of course, will be the time at which the accession number was given to that particular holdings record. Selecting the prefix plus sequence method and giving a prefix to this particular method, we click on Add Row. This new routine will be added to the table and be available for generating accession numbers automatically in the particular library and location, in the holdings records in those locations, according to the generation routine that we've just configured. Notice that once the routine has been configured, you can also choose to set a different sequence number. ALMA will begin at 1. If, however, the sequence has already been used for generating accession numbers and for some reason we need to skip ahead or want to start with a different number, we can select Set Next Sequence Value, enter a different value here, click Save, and this will be the next value of accession number that's generated by this routine, again, for this particular location. If we go back to the previous example of the main location, let's open a holdings record for that location and see how the accession number is now going to be generated. We'll create a new holdings record for the main library offsite location. New holdings record. We'll open this in the form editor and assign the library and location, the main library, and the, oh, sorry, we're in the wrong field here. Let's go back. I want to go to the 852. We'll select the main library and the off-site location. leaving the form editor now, if we select Tools, mark 21 Holdings, and generate accession number, we expect that Alma is now going to add an accession number that it generates automatically on the basis of the accession number routine that's already configured into the 852P, which is the location that's been selected as the accession placement for the main library offsite location. So let's try that now. Generate accession number. And indeed, the next number in the sequence has been generated and placed in the 852P. Okay, that's accession numbers. Let's go on to our next topic, e-task statuses. E-task statuses provide a way to help staff working with electronic resources manage their workflows. By assigning a status to an electronic resource which has not yet been activated, staff can keep better track of the steps remaining before activation. Let me just show you the e-task statuses that I'm referring to. Up at the Tasks menu, selecting Electronic Resource Activation, you can see a list of those e-resources that are awaiting activation and the ability to update the status. You see each one has its own status here. I can update the status of any or all of those by selecting some or all of them, and also within the task itself I can update the status. So the statuses that we're talking about are the statuses that appear here in the drop-down, and these are the statuses that are used by e-resource management staff that can help them manage the resources before activation. So we can add additional statuses from the resource management configuration menu. Again, the general submenu, you'll see the link for e-task statuses. Again, a very familiar kind of code table interface. You simply enter the code, enter description, click Add Row, save the table. If we go back now to our e-task statuses, we'll see that the new status appears in the drop-down and can be used and assigned to the e-resources that's awaiting activation. Okay, the next configuration is call number parsing. Call number parsing is useful when printing labels for physical items. The call number parsing configuration determines how call numbers will be formatted on the printed label, or parsed, how the call numbers will be broken apart and printed. The call number parsing configuration allows you to select a call number format for each call number type supported by Alma. In other words, where to put the line breaks and how to format that number on the printed label. You may choose from a number of different predefined formats. Configuration of call number parsing requires the repository administrator role. We configure call number parsing routines and associate them with different call number types. Again, from the resource management configuration menu, the general submenu, you have a link here for call number parsing. Clicking the link opens a screen that contains on the left side a list of all of the different call number types that are supported within Alma, as well as a drop-down, an inline drop-down for each call number type with all of the different parse routines that are currently available. You can look on the online help for a description and examples of each one of these different parsing routines. Once you've decided which parsing routine you want to use for printing the call numbers of a particular call number type, you simply select that routine here, whatever it might be, and click on Save. Although it is possible to add additional call number types here, out of the box, all of the call number types supported by Alma are already included, so really there's very little point in adding anything from the table down here. It's worthwhile pointing out that any given call number type should have only one parse routine associated with it. Okay, that's it for call number parsing. The next parameter I'd like to discuss is barcode generation. Alma can automatically generate a unique barcode when new item records are created. This is useful in order to ensure that the items receive unique barcodes. Barcodes, of course, must be unique per item. You can configure barcode generation, automatic barcode generation, again from the Resource Management Configuration screen, the General submenu. You'll see the link for barcode generation. There's only one method that Alma uses for generating the barcode, and that is a prefix plus a sequence. The sequence, of course, generated automatically by Alma, and the prefix you can include here in the prefix field. Alternatively, if you do not want to use Alma's automatic barcode generation, you can select here none, and then no barcode will be generated automatically. We'll see how exactly those barcodes are generated in just one moment. Notice that we have here an indication of the next value that's going to be used in generating the barcode. We can set the value by selecting the Set Next Sequence link and entering a different number. Saving the configurations that we've made will allow us now to generate a barcode according to that configuration. If we go, for example, to a list of records and create a new record, we'll see how the barcode can be generated automatically. Let's create a new record here. We'll add an item. Notice that there's no barcode here for this new item. We'll save the item, and in so doing, we expect that the barcode will be generated automatically for this new item, and indeed it was. As you can see here, we see our prefix and the value that we configured for the next sequence. The next configuration I'd like to discuss is called description templates. Description templates can be used in Alma to automatically populate the description field of an item record based on the content of the chronology and enumeration fields. Description templates are used most commonly for item records that are serials. Descriptions can include prefixes, suffixes, and formatting characters such as parentheses, colons, commas, spaces, etc. Description templates are based on rules, like other rules in Alma. There are input parameters and output parameters. Let's take a look now at a particular description template. Again, from the Resource Management Configuration menu under the General submenu, we have a link for description templates. We see here a list of the description templates that already exist in our system. By clicking on the Edit, we can take a look at how this particular description template is configured. We notice that each description template has a name and a description that will help us identify the particular description that's going to be generated by this template, as well as a list of input parameters that can help us to decide whether the rule that we're configuring here should be applied or not. Only if the item record in hand will meet the particular input parameters that have been configured as part of the rule will the output parameters or the description that's been defined by this template be applied to the item. So if we click selection, if we select input parameter of language, for example, because we want to have a different description based on language, perhaps in English we would use volume and number, in French we would use something else, in German something else again. We add the input parameter by clicking the add parameter. This now becomes a part of the rule, and then we configure the output parameters here. We select the field that contains data in the item record that we want to format as part of the description, and we can add here any prefixes and any suffixes. We can have spaces, etc., columns, commas, periods, colons, etc., etc. Once we've configured the rule, we can save it. And notice here that in the list of rules, the order is actually quite important. Alma will check the rules beginning from the top and apply the first rule that applies to the particular item record. So for example, if we're talking about an item record in French, the language parameter on the item is French, then the rule that we've just configured would not apply because, as you remember, the input parameter there was only for language equals English. If, however, we had an item record in English, then we would expect that this rule would apply. So let's take a look now at an item record. Let's look for some cereal. Let's open this. As an example, we see here a list of items that are currently part of this title. And we can see here the description field. It looks to me like these descriptions were actually migrated from the legacy system. If, however, we create a new item, we'll see that the description field is empty. We can fill in all of the parameters on the item, of course, and in addition generate a description for this item based on the based on the description template that we've just generated, that we've just configured. Notice, however, that if we click on generate, we won't get any information here because the description template that we configured was based on certain data in the enumeration and chronology fields. Let's take another look at the description template we configured, and we'll see that more clearly. Here, the description template is expecting to see data in some of these fields, at least in the enumeration A, enumeration B, and in the chronology I. So if we go back to our record and enter information there, for example, let's say volume 83, issue number 1 from 2014. If we save, let's see, I don't think we need to save the record. We can generate the description now, and it will be generated automatically on the basis of the data that we've entered into the item record, as well as the description template that we've configured, which is applying, which based on the input parameters of that description template rule, apply to this particular record. Okay, the next and last item I'd like to discuss today is the physical item sort routines. ALMA allows you to create additional sort routines when you've got list of physical items. This would be appropriate for 3 different screens in ALMA. The Receive New Material workbench in the Continuous tab, or in Primo in the Get It tab, or also the list of physical items, which is what I want to show you here, going back to the list of items that we just saw for this journal. And it's particularly, this configuration of physical item sort routines is particularly useful when you've got journals or a lot of different items on one particular title that may have different enumeration and chronology information. You can see that there is an ability to sort the display of items in the screen according to the sort routine that's selected here from the drop-down. The default right now is library and location. It looks like it's an ascending. You can select from any of the other sort routines that are configured here. Some of these are out of the box. Some of them have been customized. You can sort ascending, descending, etc. You can add additional sort routines to this list. And that's the configuration that I'd like to show you now. Navigating to the configuration resource management configuration menu, again in the general submenu, down here you see the physical items sort routines link. This is where you can configure additional sort routines that will be available, for example, in the screen that we just saw. You can see here the 2 routines that are actually already configured. We saw those in the drop-down. In fact, the library location was actually the current default. We can create a new sort routine by clicking on the Add Sort Routine button and add a name and a description. We're going to create a routine based on one of the chronology fields, actually the chronology I, which usually contains the year information. Notice here that we have a routine order. We can select for this sort routine to be displayed by default in ascending order or in descending order. As we saw on the screen, you can change that, but this will simply be the default. We can select from any of these fields to use in our sort routine: chronology, description, enumeration, library location, etc. We're going to select chronology. We click Add to Selection, and it's moved further up on the screen. Moving to the next step of the wizard allows us to define in which of these three screens that I mentioned we want this sort routine to be available. We have the Receiving Workbench in the Continuous tab. We have the Get It tab in Primo, and we also have the list of physical items that we just saw. So we're going to select to add this new sort routine to the list of physical items, and we're going to make this the default sort. So if we save this now, we'll see that the new sort routine has been added here to the list. The order here is not important. If we go back to our list of items now, we'll expect the list to open and be sorted by default according to the new sort routine that we just defined, because that in fact is we defined that sort as the default sort for the screen. And indeed, we see here now from the sort routine box that the new routine we configured is in fact the default. It's displaying in descending order. You can see here it's taking the year, the most recent year first, and subsequent years afterwards. That was the data that's contained in the chronology I, which was the field that we used in our sort routine. Here we can see it here. Chronology I is in fact a year. And of course, we have all of the additional sort routines that still exist in the system. Some of them, as I mentioned, are configured. We saw the description and the library location, and the others are out of the box. So that's how we can configure additional sort routines for lists of physical items and use them in different screens in order to open the default sort. Again, these are just the default sorts that will be available. We can, of course, change the way that the list is actually sorted on the screen itself. That concludes the session or the agenda for today. Let's take a brief look at what we've seen. Just by way of review, we spoke about provenance codes and how to add new codes to the provenance field drop-down in the item records. We spoke about accession numbers and how to generate unique accession number for holdings records per location. We spoke about e-task statuses, how you can add additional tasks, actually additional statuses to the e-task lists to help manage the activation workflow for electronic resources. We spoke about call number parsing and how to select a format for call numbers depending upon call number type for when you're printing labels for items. We spoke about barcode generation, how you can configure Alma to automatically generate a unique barcode for new item records. We spoke about description templates and how to generate formatted item descriptions based on the content of enumeration and chronology fields. And finally, we spoke about physical item sort routines and how you can customize sort routines for lists of physical items. That concludes the session for today. If you do have any questions, please do make note of them and submit them to your project team in advance of the live question and answer session. Thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you at another session of the Alma certification training. Bye for now.